All right, welcome to another episode of the Texas Blockcast. I'm Lee Bratcher, the president of TBC, sitting in our new podcast studios here in Dallas. Had the pleasure of being joined by Payne Cong, who is the head of business development at Foundation Logic, a new member company of the TBC. Payne, thanks for coming on the show.
Lee, thanks for having me. Super honored to be the first guest, I guess, physically in the studio doing the podcast. So thanks for having me.
That's right. Yeah, we just had lunch earlier today in a conference room that overlooks downtown Dallas. We are excited about the new digs.
For sure. I mean, if you guys haven't visited office yet, I don't think many people have. Definitely come swing by. It's a beautiful looking office with amazing view. So definitely. I'm quite surprised. It's still under construction. Like some things are a little not under construction, but getting touched up. So
yeah.
it's going to look a lot better.
Yeah. Well, let's dig into the meat of this. I mean, you guys are new members of the TBC. You're kind of taking the ASIC market for altcoins by storm, right? There's not been like a huge manufacturer that's really come in and just dominated that market, and y'all are kind of poised to be the Bitmain, if you will, of Litecoin and Dogecoin proof of work mining. I don't know if that's an association that you guys are open to, but kind of the dominant market force. Tell me a little bit first about your background and how you got to Foundation Logic, but also a little bit about the background of the company as well.
For sure. So I think there's quite a few points you mentioned there, but let me start with a quick self-introduction. I've came from the tech industry. As you know, I lived in San Francisco, the Bay Area for the past 10 years. Moved to New York City earlier this year, which is a fantastic move to me because I think New York is very similar to Beijing, where you go outside, there's a million people, you can go crazy, do whatever you want, many different options. So loving the city so far. But my background has been in tech, right? So my first gig was at Tesla for 2.5 years, almost 3 years, in supply chain management. And then I moved to another electric vehicle startup, also a Chinese startup called Payne, also in the Bay Area. Same thing, supply chain operation for management for a year. Then pivoted to Postmates, which is food delivery, and then eventually Postmates got acquired by Uber Eats. So I worked another half year there in strategy and operations, and then moved to TikTok, which was my last company. Stayed there for 2.5 years across 2 different business units, and again mainly doing strategy, right? Growth strategy. How do we make more money? All that kind of stuff. And then earlier this year, a crazy opportunity came up, very coincidental, and I had a chance to join this very young, I call it a baby, infant phase industry to me still.
Yeah.
Right? There are so many things that are happening. There's so many things that we could do, we should do. So that to me is very exciting, right? Like coming into the space, learning the space, and contributing to the space, and again, being the right player, doing the right things. I think those are the philosophies that I personally have and that I share with my company. So that's kind of how I came into the space, and that's the kind of the world I came from. And you mentioned TBC earlier, and I just want to kind of preface this whole conversation by saying that again, right, like the way we see you guys, the way we look up to you guys is because a lot of things that you guys are doing for the space, for the industry, or for the players in the space, to connect the people, to provide the resources, to provide the opportunities for people to not only just to get into the space, but also to connect with each other and grow together in this space. So that's the big reason why, us as a company, me as a person, we look up to you guys, to the organization a lot. And that's why we would love to work with you guys and continuously to, contribute wherever we can, right? Not it's always mutually beneficial, right? Whatever we can do to this space, right? We talk about having these offline events or whatever to provide an education opportunity for people in the space or not, right? If they're trying to get into the space, happy to be there for them. If they're already in the space, happy to provide whatever information or things that we can, right, to the space. So thank you guys for what you guys do for the whole industry.
It's our honor, and I don't, there's a lot to be done, and so it takes a village, a lot of partners. Like you said, we're a new industry, so on the advocacy side, it's also, there's a lot of education that has to take place. But
100%.
so a little bit, you've given us some background on yourself, your kind of trajectory, what's led you to be the head of business development, and I'm sure you do a lot of strategy as well at Foundation Logic. Talk about some of your partners, your colleagues from the technical side. Where were they prior? Obviously, to build an ASIC company, you have to have some incredible technical chops, and I'm sure that they're either coming from the Bitcoin mining manufacturing world or maybe other high performance computing. Tell us more about that.
For sure. So the company, a bit more about the company. The company has been around for 4 years, actually. Right? We might seem to be very new to the scene. When we launched our first product earlier this year, second product like later this year in Dubai, but a lot of R&D work, a lot of development and iterations and testing went behind the scene for the past 3 years. We've been testing our miners at scale in one of our partner farms in Canada for the past year, and obviously way more research and development went into the work behind the scene before that. So the majority, we have a lot of our team in Asia, right? Like so supply chain, R&D, the companies headquartered in Singapore.
Sure.
So we leveraged obviously logistics in Asia and manufacturing in Asia is cheaper, it's more convenient, all that kind of stuff. So we leveraged that part of the world to do those kind of things. In the States, I'm based in New York. Our VP of product, Ben, he's based in San Francisco, right? So we kind of combine the best of the two worlds on the West Coast and East Coast. Now Texas, obviously. And then we have our, support team, after sales support, customer service, a lot of that in Canada, right? So especially because we really, really want to focus on North America market, and we want to be able to provide that very, very timely support and assistance, right, in the same market, in the same time zone.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how the company is set up.
That's amazing. Yeah. And you've got some patient capital partners, because 4 years of R&D is not cheap.
Definitely not.
Especially when you're talking about chips.
Right.
And okay, tell us, this is something that both myself and the audience are learning more about. So when you're talking about altcoin mining, you have Litecoin. You're obviously, it's a different, it's not SHA-256. It's a different consensus mechanism. It's still proof of work, but slightly different cryptography. Talk about the script, nature of those consensus, proof of work coins, Litecoin and Dogecoin in particular, and then I'm going to ask you about revenue maximization.
For sure. So I think the question a lot of people ask is why Script, right? And how did you guys, as a company, pick Script as the track you want to be on? Why not Bitcoin? I think it's, first of all, it's not a decision that we made overnight, right? Because obviously, like you said, for all the time and the money, the capital, and the effort that was put into this for 4 years, it wasn't an easy decision. It wasn't a simple decision, right? We looked at different tracks, different algorithms, including Bitcoin, of course, including other altcoins. But we picked Script, which is merge binding Dogecoin and Litecoin, and today Bell's coin as well, right? So 3 different coins merge binding together under the same proof of work algorithm, which is Script, for many different reasons, right? I think one of the reasons is because it's merge binding, it provides more security to the network, right? That's number one. Number two, we'll talk about more about like profit and revenue later, but because the nature of merge mining, you're mining not just one coin, you're mining multiple coins at the same time. So naturally, that gives you a boost of revenue, right? That's another edge that Script has over some of the other networks. Number three, Bitcoin. Obviously, we all, in the world of mining, right? Bitcoin is where it all started. We all want Bitcoin to be healthy, to continue to be healthy, because that's the leading indicator, in a sense, right, for the whole crypto world. So we all want Bitcoin to be healthy. But the truth is, right, like I look up the number, I confirmed the number. I think there's 6% left.
6%. So it's right in between where you and I were.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's about 6% left of Bitcoin left, right? That's going to go on for another 100 years, like you said earlier. But eventually, the return will be diminishing, right, as time goes. Script it's a younger network, right? There more room to grow into. It is similar to kind of how Bitcoin started many years ago, right? People started with GPUs in their garage and eventually graduated into ASICs. But during that process, you're able to reap the early mover benefit, right? The earlier you get into to a certain network or a certain ecosystem, the more advantages you have, the more kind of money you can make early on. And as you go on to reinvest into your operation, reinvest into the same track, that's kind of how you have sustained success and growth, right? In the ecosystem. So those are just a few of the reasons why we picked this track. And obviously we can talk more about what Dogecoin is, what Litecoin is, and how they're different, like some of the pros and cons, right, compared to Bitcoin, for example. Those are the more kind of coin-based arguments or reasons, right, besides the economics and all that kind of stuff. So I guess that's a long way to answer your question. It's a decision that was meticulously made after obviously many different considerations.
Sure. Okay, now this phrase that I really like that you've used, it's revenue maximization.
Right.
And as we think through this, I would include probably AI and high performance compute into this kind of equation, right? Because really what miners are in the business of doing, they're turning energy into hash rate, into, some form of compute. And in this case, it's merge mining, but it could also be Bitcoin mining hash rate. It could also be, I guess for AI, it's more GPU based, but it's still high performance computing. It's compute.
Right.
Expound upon the concept of revenue maximization, and I think describe what you would say to a Bitcoin mining executive who has maybe never considered what you guys are offering.
For sure. That's a great question. And that's, I think, nowadays, a lot of my work kind of revolves around that, is to tell people what is altcoin mining, what is Dogecoin, what is Litecoin, and how does that differ from Bitcoin. So I think that's a really great question. So I think, first of all, right, in this, like you said, in our world, energy cost is the king.
Yeah.
Right. If you have no energy costs, doesn't matter what you mine, doesn't matter what you use it for, you're gonna make money.
Yeah.
Right. But that's not for most of us, that's not the case.
Everybody's got to pay power. Yeah.
Right. A little bit. Right. So when you have a cost at play, then you look at economics part of it. Right. Or even without it, you look at what can make you the most amount of money. But with that at play is even more important. Right. So, with the Bitcoin halving that recently happened this year, the fourth halving, obviously a lot of the Bitcoin miners are going through a little tough time right now, right? The hash price is hovering around all-time low.
Right.
So I think a good question to ask then now is, what are some of the potential alternative solutions? Right, might not be solutions, but what are some of the alternative revenue streams perhaps you can look at? So I think naturally there are two options that comes to mind, right? Normally, number one is AI, right? It's a very hot topic, HPC, but the truth there is, if you have existing equipment or facilities that you can kind of pivot to AI, to HPC, like if you have a bunch of GPUs lying around, that might be a lot easier for you to do compared to some of the other players. If not, right, like we all know, it's gonna cost at least 10 to 20 times more to set it up than a mining farm for the same amount of energy, right? I think it can go up to $10 million per megawatt.
Per megawatt, which is HPC. Crazy expensive.
Which is nuts. And also maintaining it, running it, it's also a lot more expensive than running a mining farm, right? To my knowledge.
Yeah. And you have customers too.
Then you have to find exactly, right. So and it's a different world if you're pivoting from a mining operation, right? Because it's not proof of work. It's a completely different game that you have to learn, and then the whole ecosystem is new, right? Option two, right? Continue down the same road, right? Build more, get more capacity, get more power. Whether you use it for Bitcoin or not, if you're going to use it for Bitcoin, it doesn't solve the fact that the hash price is around all-time low, right? You're not making more money just by getting more power. So then we look at a third option potentially, which is to get into potentially altcoin mining, right? Might not necessarily be Script. It can be Caspa, it can be Zcash, it can be whatever that's out there that makes sense economically and business-wise. So that's kind of what we come forward to say, hey, Script is a great alternative solution, alternative revenue stream for the miners out there who still want to continue to stay in the game of mining and also stay within proof of work.
Yeah,
right?
and
Because-
not spend 20x on AI capex.
Right, exactly. So everything is familiar. It's the same thing, just a different algorithm. And then the upside is you're making more money, right? So kind of like what we talked about over lunch is our biggest advantage when it comes to the numbers of the business is we have our miners produce higher revenue. It's more revenue efficient, right? And plus the fact that the pool partners that we have, right, like Luxor, like NiceHash, they're able to pay you out in Bitcoin directly.
Right.
So if you are a Bitcoin maxi, right, what you're eventually doing is you're using a non-Bitcoin miner, you're using a script miner, you're making more Bitcoin using a script miner than a Bitcoin miner.
Because you're getting paid out in Bitcoin by the pool.
In Bitcoin by the pool.
And they just do that. They may take a little bit of few bips of, conversion fee, but that's probably pales in comparison to how much more per kilowatt. Like, so say you have a kilowatt, it's a very small amount of mining, but we'll say that for kind of ease of math.
Mm-hmm.
How much more on a percentage basis are you making, like today? And you probably don't know today, but like recently in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
With script versus SHA-256?
Yeah, I think that's another great question. I think one very easy way to compare that is, let us say, if you have a S21, right, a 20 terahash miner for Bitcoin, that makes you about $5 per day at 5 cents per kilowatt hour energy cost.
Yeah.
DG1 Plus, which is our latest script miner, you're making about $18 at the same power cost. Right, so you're basically
300%.
Yeah, triple.
Interesting.
Yeah, and obviously if you're industrial miner working with the pools, we also we have partnership with the pools. You can get lower transaction costs. We can get all the benefits, right? That kind of to make up for whatever they might charge for paying out in Bitcoin. I don't think they do. They do charge you anything, by the way.
Oh, really? It's free.
I don't think they do. You can choose what you want to get paid out,
wow.
basically. So that's one of the biggest reasons why we when we do work with the pools, we want to make sure that they give you that option, that flexibility as a miner to pick and choose what you want to get paid out with, right? And then in that case, you can also kind of design your own strategy based on that. You can say, hey, I see Bitcoin as secure as possible, as consistent as possible.
Yeah.
I choose 50% of my payoff in Bitcoin. Hold on to Bitcoin forever, right? The other 50% maybe
More speculative.
more speculative, right? You shoot for the upside, right? Keep 30% in Doge, 20% in Litecoin. Right? Whatever you want to do is up to you.
Why is that arbitrage window so wide? 300% difference in. It seems like people would close that pretty fast. Because obviously, if you get more hash rate on script, that profit margin will go down just because of the competition piece.
For sure, exactly, right? So again, I compared that to kind of the early days of the Bitcoin network, right? It is getting the early, being able to continue to grow in that same space. That's when you can accumulate wealth in that sense, in that same game, because things will evolve, obviously, right? As money eventually flow out of Bitcoin mining, where does it go? Maybe it's script mining, maybe it's AI, maybe it's other coins. And obviously the network, the difficulty is going to change with the amount of investment that's poured into that.
And then the Bitcoin price goes up and a little bit flows back into Bitcoin. And it just sort of like a constant evolving, arbitrage game, essentially.
For sure, right? Like, and a lot of people, not just in the world of mining and crypto, obviously, there are many professionals out there that make maybe like 0.1%, 0.5% just off of arbitrage trading currencies.
Yeah.
Right. It's a massive, it's an existing business model. It's
not
nothing new, right?
There's a little more friction. You can't, Forex trading, there's like zero friction because it's all computer-based trading.
Right.
But talk about the technical pieces, the friction between trading out one of y'all's latest model machines with, say, an S21 or an M60.
But what do you mean trading out?
Like swapping them on a rack. Are they using those C14, C19 power connections? Is it a very similar sized machine? All that stuff.
Yep, another great question. So when when we design our miner, we want to make sure that's is as compatible as possible.
Okay.
Right. So it's the same form factor as S19 and S21.
Oh, wow.
Same powers. Everything's
Everything's the same.
So we want to make sure that when you swap out one of your older models, if it's our product fits in right in there to rack.
What about software and firmware?
Mm-hmm.
So like with mining, you've got companies like Foreman and others.
Mm-hmm.
You've got Bixbit with firmware. You've got Brains. You've got a bunch of different firmware providers.
Mm-hmm.
Are you able to manage that machine on a probably not the same firmware, or definitely not the same firmware, probably not even the same miner management software?
Mm-hmm.
But are there miner management softwares out there, and is y'all's firmware like hard? Is it hard to break into? Do you have to break into it, or is it built more from like an open perspective?
Yeah, another great question. I'm not the technical guy, so but I think it's the firmware we first of all all the firmware we have, all the updates are available on the website directly.
Yeah,
that's number one. Number two, we actually work with Foreman. It's already been integrated into their
cool.
system. So for larger scale miners, if you use Foreman, it's already there.
and then a lot of the public miners have proprietary software that they use for miner management.
Yep. So for us to provide API documents, super easy. Everything's super easily connected. Everything's already built in. We've done this with not only just Foreman, but if we're working with a few other OS providers, and as well as if you have proprietary software or system, we can be plugged in very easily.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've thought of all these things that
Absolutely.
I'm just now thinking about right now.
Absolutely. No, all these are great questions, right? Because, again, as a new player into the game, you have to think about all these things that you need the game needs improvements on, right? Mm-hmm. From leave alone the quality of the miner, right? That's kind of the first and foremost. But then it comes to repair services, right? We have our official repair center outside of Dallas, actually, for the States, and as we continue to grow in the States, we're going to continue to expand our repair capability in North America.
Wow. Can you say where that is, or is that confidential?
I can tell you where that is. I think it's just like I believe like 15, 20 minutes outside of Dallas.
Oh, nice.
Let me find out the exact location for you. We have our one of our service centers outside of Montreal in Canada.
Okay.
But again, we're going to continue to grow in North America, right, as we kind of penetrate the market.
Yeah.
And then you talk about the customer support, right? We have 24/7 customer support running around the clock. We have two different kind of shifts doing that real time for all the technical issues, whatever you have. Wow. And then it's kind of how you treat your customers, right? Like kind of like what we talked about earlier. We don't just target the big miners, right? But we also want to empower the retail miners, which is also why we're coming out with the DG Home 1, which is a home miner, which is going to be slick looking, super cool. I'll show you some pictures later. But so we don't just kind of come in to do one part of the thing. We're coming in here to again do the right things and be the right player for this game.
Fascinating. There's a lot that I want to ask you, but I'm going to hone in on this piece that we've been talking about, because I think the listeners here are probably more institutional mining focused rather than home mining focused. So let me throw a scenario at you. You've got a big miner, say 100 megawatt facility, 95 megawatts of Bitcoin mining and 5 megawatts of script. Mm-hmm. And they're running y'all's machines. They've just plugged, same PDUs, same C14, C19. I think both of those are out there in the marketplace. I'm not sure which one is more dominant right now. They've just gone in, they plugged those into the PDUs. They're using Foreman, or they're using their proprietary software. They have your API so that they can control those machines similarly to how they control a Bitmain machine or a MicroBT machine. Mm-hmm. What are they able to identify those workers and curtail them? Say the power price jumps to quadruple normal pricing, right?
Right.
Are they able to curtail those machines at a different? So you might have a different break-even point per machine, is what I'm saying.
For sure.
Like certain, even within Bitcoin mining machines, some of them are far less efficient. Their break-even point is much lower dollars per megawatt, cents per kilowatt, whatever. Mm-hmm. I would imagine that you'd want to be able to do that, but have you ever, is anybody in the field doing that yet or experimenting? Of course, this is at this point When are deliveries happening? Is that Q1 2025 or is that Q4 2024?
So a few questions there. I think first of all, the curtailment question is a great question. I'll give you more details on that.
Yeah.
In terms of when we deliver, we've already sold thousands of units globally already for both DG1 and DG1
Already
Plus.
delivered.
Already delivered.
Wow.
That's both our industrial miners, right?
Yeah.
DG Home 1, which is the home miner that's coming out, we're going to start delivering that mid-December this year.
Q4. Okay.
Q4. And then we're also working on the hydro version and immersion, different variations of the existing miners as well.
So there is a little bit of history. So the commercial scale, has it been running for 6 months? Like who's got the first delivery? How long have they been running?
So we have customers globally. Obviously, in the States, that's kind of where my personal focus is, right? Because for obvious reasons, all the pubcos are in North America, especially Texas. Again, to us is a very strategically important place to be. So in the States, we have many customers of different sizes in part of Asia or in part of Europe. So wherever there's mining, whoever's interested in script, right? We'll love to have them become our customers. But for the 1,000 units we're delivered, it's global. Yeah.
But like who got the first delivery as far as like timing wise? Is it, how much history, I guess, are we saying are we seeing?
In terms of how long has the first batch been running, kind of, I would say like end of last year. That's kind of when we started first, self-testing.
Yeah.
And then obviously we have some early on partners or people who are interested that they've been running their miners since around that time, end of last year, beginning of this year.
And I would assume, based upon what I've read, that you guys are already the largest manufacturer of script machines in the world.
Yeah, we're definitely, in terms of the technology, in terms of the hardware, we're definitely one of the leading ones out there. We think, obviously they're the big guys like Bitmain out there, who has done incredible things for the space, right? Like I think without Bitmain, this space wouldn't be here. So they've done many incredible things for the industry. But
they only have SHA-256 chips.
They also have script miners.
They what?
They also have script miners.
Do they really?
They do, yeah. So L7 was kind of the previous product, and now this year their new product is called L9, which is very comparable to DG1 Plus, which is our.
I've never heard of Bitmain selling.
Yeah, I mean Bitmain sells a bunch of different miners across many different algorithms.
Huh.
Yeah. But eventually, the way I think about it, the way we think about it is the more options that are out there in terms of manufacturers, the better it is eventually for the end users, which are the miners, right?
What percentage of Bitmain sales do you think are script miners?
I don't want to speculate on that.
Because no one really knows except for Bitmain themselves, which we could ask them. They're a new member of the TBC as well.
That's right. I saw.
That's fascinating. I thought that they only had SHA-256 chips.
Yeah, they have many different product lines.
Is it a different? So like I know with their new S21s, I think it's on a 5 nanometer chip, which is a very new cutting edge node.
Right.
What about for script miners? You don't have to have them that like efficient, right?
So that's another great question, but we'll get back to the curtailment later.
Yeah,
because I think that's a great question.
A lot of questions.
So in terms of chip technology, again, I'm not the tech person, but I try to be as much as I can.
Yeah.
So we use 6 nanometers, right, from Samsung.
That's very efficient.
It's very efficient. So
I'm not a tech person either, by the way. Like I only know that that's the distance between the ridges in the silicone.
Right. That's as much as I know as well.
That's all I know.
Yeah, but there are many different. Obviously there are 4 nanometers. There's going to be 3. You can use any of these chips to make your miner. I think the only kind of issue is with some of these more advanced chips, these smaller chips. There may or may not be more issues that we never run into before, right? Because there's less mature technology for this application. So if you want to use a 5 nanometer chip or 4 nanometer chip, it can be more powerful, right? It can be more efficient. But it's going to be more expensive.
Yeah.
So eventually, as businessmen, people, or whoever's in this industry, mining is, again, all comes down to revenue, all comes down to your return on investment timeline, right? I can spend $20,000 buying a very, very powerful, very efficient miner, but the ROI is going to be, let us say, I don't know, 3 years versus something that's a little bit less efficient, a little less powerful, but cheaper, and it makes more sense from a business perspective. That's all people care about, right? Is whatever's the best deal is the best deal. So
I'm shocked that you guys have got a 6 nanometer allocation from Samsung. That is not easy to do.
Yeah,
You got to have some relationships to make that happen.
Yeah, we have great relationship with Samsung, which is I mean, honestly, that's kind of one of your core competitiveness.
Yeah,
right? It's the ability to get wafer and be able to ramp up production very quickly based on your demand. Again, by securing these wafers, right? So that's one of the things that I found. Kind of as I started to get into this space and getting to know more about the company and everything, that makes us so much more competitive, right, as a manufacturer.
Wow.
Yeah.
What have I not asked you? I know I've thrown a million questions at you, but what have I not asked you that you want to make sure that the audience hears about?
Oh, that's not a good question. But why don't I answer your
The
previous question,
curtailment?
the
Okay.
curtailment question, because I think it's a really, really great question, especially for Texas, right, for obvious reasons. And that's the question some certain miners in Texas asked us before as well. So we do have that feature built in our miner. That's allowing the miner to ramp down super quickly and ramp back up super quickly as the power price move, right? I think that's one thing, and that can be easily done through. We have our own software that's like OS as well. You can track all the miners. You can ramp them down, ramp them up, see their status and performance very easily too. That's always option for the miners out there. I think that's number one. Number two is because Script has a higher profitability break-even point. It allows you to not curtail as much as compared to a Bitcoin miner,
Right?
Because the break-even point is a lot lower.
Right.
You have to curtail, otherwise you lose money.
Yeah.
But for Script or maybe some other algorithms, that break-even point is a lot higher.
Yeah.
So
it's triple.
Right. So it gives you a lot. Exactly. So it gives you a lot more space to not curtail if you choose not to.
Yeah. It's funny, in Texas, the prices go from not a lot to a lot very fast.
Mm-hmm.
So you rarely have it where you get like $100 a megawatt hour sked print and then $120. It's usually like 100 to 1,000, and in that case, it's shut it all down, right? Nobody's profitable at $1,000 a megawatt hour.
Yeah. So we call it idle mode, right? So you can ramp it down to where just the control board is running.
Gotcha.
Nothing else
Like
is running
5% probably.
It's super low.
Yeah.
And then you can ramp it back up within a minute to full
A
capacity.
minute?
Yeah.
That's quick.
Yeah. Actually, we tested it at Consensus. We had our miner running there. I tested it in person.
That's quick. Yeah.
Very, very quick.
Nobody else can do that as far as I know.
Again, I can speak on other people's product.
Well, it depends on the firmware actually that they're running, right? Like
everything.
Yeah. Stock firmware on like a
stock firmware
micro BT machine, the ramp back up is much slower. From what I've seen.
Yeah. Again, I cannot comment on that, but we realize that's a very important feature to have, especially for Texas miners.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. What am I forgetting to ask you that you want to talk about?
I think as a brand, as a company, I think the one thing I continue to say, and I'll always say, is that we're not here for a quick buck. Right? We're not here to be a short-term player. We're here to be a long-term player. Do the right things. Take it one step at a time. No shortcuts. That's kind of how we see ourselves. That's how we want to position ourselves. And you and the people out there, you'll continue to see us present at these conferences, right? And doing the right things, and just to be there to provide what we can as a manufacturer to eventually benefit the miners and benefit the whole ecosystem. So I think that's the most important thing I want to kind of stress again. And only time will tell. Because it doesn't matter how much I say about that. I think only time will tell if we're going to be able to do that. And I'm a firm believer that we can. So I think that's the core value I think that we share, that we have as a company. And besides the fact that we want to continue to be one of the leading manufacturers for script miners, we also, again, we're customer oriented, right? We want to make sure all of our miners, all of our customers, our clients, we can help them maximize their value, the value they're getting out of our miners, and be able to help them maximize their profit, right? We're kind of, again, going back to that concept of revenue maxis, right? Eventually, we're all here to, if you're in mining, right, you're probably here to, obviously for revenue, for money, right? This is revenue driven. So why not be a revenue maxi, right? That's kind of how, from a number perspective, from a business perspective, that's how we want to be here to provide to our clients. And for the long term, right, the grand goal is to help revolutionize and continue the advancement of proof of work, right? So that's kind of the bigger scheme of things, and we're going to continue to reinvest a lot of the revenue that we have back into R&D, and as you guys will see later on this year, we'll come up with different products, and of course next year as well. The technology is going to get better. We're going to have better product, and we're going to continuously to kind of push the competition in a sense, right? So that other manufacturers will. Obviously, if they want to, also manufacture script miners, then that's kind of we want to come in here and set the standards in a sense.
Wow.
Yeah.
Payne, it's an honor to have you on the show. We're looking forward to working with you guys in the months and years ahead. Very cool that you guys have such patient capital behind you that's willing to say, hey, let's, create this trajectory that we don't need to make a quick buck. We're going to build a reputation. That's very exciting to see, and I think the audience will look forward to connecting with you guys at the next event, whether that's here in Texas or anywhere across the U.S.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Lee, again, and definitely look forward to working a lot closely together on different ventures.